I was halfway through my third deployment when the message came through. One line. No greeting. No warning. Ethan, the accounts are closed. I filed this morning. Don't come home. I read it once. Then again. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't spike. I just stared at the screen as if it might change. It didn't. My name is Ethan Cole, 38 years old. Staff Sergeant, 1st Battalion, U.S. Army. Deployed on a classified operations rotation between Israel and Iran. 14 years in. 3 tours. 1 wife back home in Denver. Correction, had a wife. Her name was Melissa. We met in our 20s. She was smart, sarcastic, and said she'd never date a soldier. 3 years later, we were married. I thought we understood each other. I was wrong. I sat on the edge of my cot, surrounded by steel lockers and the low hum of the cooling units. Outside, the desert heat pressed against the walls like an angry god. But inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No explanation. No voice call. No details. Just that text. And the confirmation that every account, joint checking, emergency savings, even the CD we opened for our daughter's college fund, had been zeroed out. Gone. $160,000. Drained. I responded with one word. Understood. Then I put my phone down, stood up, and walked to the comms room like nothing had happened. You see, in my line of work, emotion gets people killed. I'd been trained to operate under pressure, to assess threats, and respond with precision. I didn't panic. I didn't rage. I logged everything. Took screenshots. Checked timestamps. And then I did what I always do when a system goes down. I started troubleshooting. I didn't call Melissa. There was no point. Because this wasn't a breakdown. This was an ambush. She had waited until I was halfway across the world, 12 hours ahead. Off the grid, no legal access, no ability to respond. She'd planned this. That night, I lay in my bunk, eyes open, listening to the hum of generators outside and the occasional thud of helicopters cycling in and out. Guys snored around me. The desert wind kicked up sand against the walls. But inside, I was rewinding everything, tracing the pattern, looking for what I missed. This wasn't just betrayal. It was timed, executed, clean, almost military in its precision. And that's when I knew she didn't act alone. The next morning, I requested temporary access to a secured military network. Told them I needed it for logistics. Nobody questioned it. I had a reputation. Tactical, efficient, quiet. I wasn't the guy who broke down. I was the guy you sent in when things got messy. As I pulled up the financial logs, I began building a timeline. I didn't know yet who was helping her, but I did know one thing. By the time I stepped foot back on U.S. soil, I wouldn't be coming home empty-handed. She'd taken everything, but she had no idea what I had prepared for her. I didn't speak to anyone for the next 3 days. Not my squad, not my CO, not even back home. They just assumed I was focused, locked in before a mission. That was fine. That assumption had kept me alive more than once. Let them think I was prepping for a patrol. In reality, I was running numbers at 3 a.m. under red light, piecing together the truth behind my wife's betrayal. I didn't need to hack anything. Melissa hadn't been careful because she didn't think she had to be. She believed I was blind, deployed, cut off. But soldiers like me don't live in the dark. We work in it. The first clue came from a transaction on the joint card, 3 weeks before she filed. A purchase from a boutique resort in Telluride. We'd never been to Telluride. Not once. But 2 plane tickets had been bought. Round trip. First class. She wasn't alone. Next came the withdrawals. Clean, methodical, spaced just enough to stay under the radar. 5,000 here. 7,000 there. Over 60 days, she bled the accounts dry. She was good. Quiet. But not invisible. Then I found a transfer, $10,000, moved into a secondary checking account we'd opened years ago, before our daughter was born. I'd forgotten it even existed. She hadn't. And that's when I saw his name on the transfer memo, GM. 2 letters. That was it. But it was enough. Because 6 months ago, Melissa started working part-time at a small architecture firm. Just bookkeeping, she said. Nothing serious. Said she needed something to keep her mentally active while I was deployed. The owner? Gregory Mason. I remembered the name. Bald. Mid-40s. Drove a Tesla and liked to talk too much at the one holiday party I managed to attend in the last 3 years. A man who wore confidence like cologne, too thick and always lingering. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was deeper, calmer, focused. Gregory Mason had taken my wife, maybe even helped plan this whole thing. But he'd made a mistake. He touched the accounts. That made it financial. And financial meant traceable. And in this world, traceable means vulnerable. I opened a new document, titled it simply, Operation Homecoming. In it, I listed 4 objectives. Freeze access to what's left. Map financial activity going back 1 year. Establish proof of collusion. Respond on my terms. There would be no confrontation at the airport. No dramatic homecoming. I wasn't interested in begging for answers. I wanted data. Leverage. Precision. I wasn't trying to win her back. I was preparing the field. That night, I backed everything up to a secure cloud under a pseudonym I'd used years ago during cyber training exercises. Something no one would trace to me unless they knew what they were looking for. Melissa thought she'd buried me under paperwork and distance. She had no idea I'd been building countermeasures since my second tour. This wasn't a marriage anymore. This was a battlefield. And she'd just stepped into the wrong AO. By the end of the week, I had mapped every major financial movement Melissa had made in the past 6 months. It wasn't just the drained accounts. She'd liquidated my personal Roth IRA, closed out a shared investment fund we started when our daughter was born, even sold a motorcycle I'd kept in storage while deployed. That one hit different. It had belonged to my brother before he passed. She knew that, but she sold it anyway. For $7,000, for $100. Every move she made was calculated, precise, clinical. I didn't hate her for it. I respected the strategy. She was playing the long game, but she was playing against the wrong person. I started by contacting my bank, military line, encrypted call from base. Told them I suspected fraudulent activity and requested a soft hold on all remaining assets tied to my SSN. They couldn't freeze joint accounts without a legal claim, but they could flag any further large transfers for review. That would slow her down. Then I reached out to my lawyer. Not a divorce attorney, a military contract lawyer I'd helped during a fraud investigation 2 years prior. I kept the conversation brief. Told her I needed a referral to someone local in Denver who understood discretion. She gave me a name. I logged it, didn't make the call yet. Timing mattered. Pressure needed to build. You don't fire a shot until you see the whites of their eyes. Meanwhile, I created a new secure folder, air-gapped, triple authenticated. Labeled it simply, Contingency. Inside I placed screenshots of every transaction Melissa made after my deployment started. A full report of GPS tag purchases. Metadata from photo backups she didn't know were still syncing to our cloud account, because she hadn't disconnected me from the shared photo drive. And that's where I found it. A picture, posted by her friend Lindsay on social media, then synced to the cloud. Melissa, at a cabin. Firelight in the background. Gregory Mason standing behind her. His hand not on her waist, but in her back pocket. Laughing. Close. Comfortable. Dated 1 month after I left the country. I didn't feel betrayal. That's an emotional word. I felt confirmation. Confirmation that I'd been replaced long before she pulled the plug. Still, I said nothing. Wrote nothing. Didn't confront. I just documented. Organized. Prepared. Because here's the thing. She thought she'd taken everything. Money, house, family. But she hadn't touched what mattered most. My silence. And silence, when used right, is the most dangerous weapon in the world. I updated the Operation Homecoming file. Added a new step. 5. Initiate indirect contact. Watch response. It was time to tap the glass. I created a fake Gmail account under a burner name and sent one email to Gregory Mason's firm. Be careful who you trust. Not everything buried stays buried. No signature. No IP trail. No reply expected. I didn't want an answer. I wanted movement. Gregory's firm updated their website 3 days later. I checked it the way you check a pressure plate. Slow, careful, knowing something's about to move. His name was still listed. His face still front and center on the leadership page. But the contact form? Disabled. That told me one thing. The email landed. The moment you take a system offline without announcement, it means you're not fixing a bug. You're plugging a leak. Melissa still hadn't reached out. No email. No call. No explanation. She wasn't panicking yet. She thought the silence meant I was crushed. Processing. Wounded. She mistook strategy for surrender. Classic mistake. I spent the next week filing a quiet claim through JAG for financial misconduct during active deployment. The military takes that seriously. Very seriously. It wasn't a divorce move. It was a flag, a marker, a signal to civilian courts that something wasn't right, especially with joint assets involved. I attached every document I had. Meanwhile, I sent another email. Different burner, different phrasing. Tell her I know about the cabin. And the missing 7,400. Clock's ticking. This one went to Melissa's work address, not her personal. I knew her habits. She checked her work email obsessively, even on weekends, even on vacations. That was how she caught her boss cheating on his taxes, back when she still believed in doing the right thing. 2 hours later, her friend Lindsay made her Instagram private. I didn't follow her. I'd never liked a single photo. But I knew the timing wasn't random. Melissa was trying to close the windows. Too late. The next day, Gregory's firm removed his headshot from their homepage. His bio was still buried on the team page, but the demotion was clear. Internally, that kind of shift doesn't happen unless someone's reputation becomes a liability. He was sweating. Good. I wasn't trying to destroy him. Yet. But I wanted him nervous. Nervous people talk. Nervous people make mistakes. Nervous people throw others under the bus to save themselves. Melissa had built her betrayal like a fortress. Clean. Legal. Papered. But now the walls were cracking. Not from brute force, but from subtle, surgical pressure. And still, I said nothing. I didn't respond to her emails. Because there weren't any. I didn't answer the phone. Because it never rang. She thought she'd disappeared me with a single filing. That I'd roll back into civilian life broke, beaten, and quiet. Only the last part was true. I was quiet. But I wasn't broken. And I sure as hell wasn't done. I updated Operation Homecoming with the newest entries. Gregory under internal review. Financial misconduct claim filed. Leverage escalation initiated. Melissa had built a house of cards and set it on fire from the inside. All I did was lock the doors and wait. 2 weeks before my scheduled return, I received a formal inquiry from the Department of Defense. Not a warning, not a reprimand. An invitation to expand my financial misconduct report with any additional documentation. That meant one thing, they were taking it seriously. And that meant Melissa's actions were now under military scrutiny. Her bank logs, her withdrawals, her timing. All of it was officially being reviewed for violations under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. A civilian court might take months. The Army moves faster when one of their own gets ambushed from home. Meanwhile, I filed for a private forensic audit of the house. Not the structure, the digital footprint. A friend from a previous CyberOps rotation owed me a favor. I gave him access to our old smart home system. I'd installed it myself. Cameras, logs, entry history, and the full sync from the router. What came back wasn't just useful. It was surgical. Melissa had disabled the front camera 2 days before she filed. She never touched the other 3. People like her always focus on what's visible. But the back door had a motion-triggered cam. It captured 6 visits from Gregory over 2 months. Always when our daughter was with Melissa's mother. Always between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. He never stayed the night. But he didn't need to. They weren't being careless. They were being confident. I added it all to the contingency folder. Audio logs from their hallway whispers. Time-stamped entry data. Voice matches from smart speaker triggers. Nothing illegal. Just private moments recorded by their own silence. I wasn't stalking. I wasn't spying. I was collecting proof. The same way any tactician builds a case before striking. Melissa hadn't just taken money. She'd compromised military funds by routing deployment reimbursements through a personal account. That gave me more than just legal ground. It gave me tactical leverage. Still, no contact from her. But then came a message from someone unexpected, her attorney. Not a confrontation. A request. Please provide any financial statements necessary to resolve asset disputes without litigation. Translation, they were trying to settle. Quietly. Because they knew if this went public, Gregory's business would implode. Melissa's credibility would evaporate. And any judge would ask one question. Why would a woman empty accounts, sell property, and hide money while her husband was under active deployment orders? I didn't reply. Not yet. Because this wasn't about court. This was about timing. Melissa thought the danger had passed. That the worst was behind her. She had no idea the most dangerous moment in a mission is the silence right before the breach. I checked the countdown on my phone. 9 days until boots hit U.S. soil. And then I'd be standing on the front porch of the life she tried to erase. Except this time, I wasn't coming home. I was coming for everything. I landed at Denver International just after midnight. No one was waiting. Not that I expected them to be. Melissa didn't know I was back. Neither did Gregory. That was intentional. I'd used a different return date in all documentation, gave her lawyer the wrong timeline, claimed I'd be delayed on orders. The fewer eyes on my arrival, the better. I walked past baggage claim with a single duffel. No uniform. Civilian clothes. No service banner. No welcome home sign. Just silence. The kind that feels like control. The kind that means I'm not here to rebuild. I'm here to finish. I rented a car under a different name and parked 2 blocks from what used to be our house. The lights were on. It was almost 1 a.m., and there were 2 wine glasses in the kitchen window. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. She'd changed the locks. But she forgot the cameras. The same system I installed before my last deployment was still feeding into my backup server. It wasn't visible from any app. I'd built it to run separately, independent from her login. I watched in silence as Gregory walked out shirtless to grab something from the fridge. Melissa followed, laughing, comfortable. The same woman who filed for divorce without a call, who emptied every account and called it survival, who told mutual friends I'd become distant, cold. She didn't know I'd been watching. She didn't know the house was still wired to me. The next morning, I met with my lawyer in person for the first time. I handed her a drive. No emotion, no commentary, just evidence. Her expression didn't change much, but the tone in her voice shifted. She said it plainly. This isn't a divorce case anymore. This is going to court, and not the way she planned. Later that day, I visited the county clerk's office and filed a motion to contest the division of assets, citing willful misconduct, financial fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty during deployment. Melissa would receive the notice within 72 hours. She'd know I was back when the silence broke with a knock on her door. Legal, cold, official. But before that, I had one final move. I created a new folder, labeled it Forward. Inside, I dropped a copy of our daughter's birth certificate, the trust fund Melissa tried to close, and a new custodial document requesting full parental rights. Not out of spite, out of structure. Because a woman who steals money from a soldier under fire doesn't get to rewrite what family means. I didn't send her a text, didn't leave a voicemail. Silence remained my weapon. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Until then, I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't show my face. I would let the system speak for me. And when she finally realized just how deep I'd planned this, that's when the real panic would begin. 3 days after the court papers landed, Melissa called me. Not my new number. Not my lawyer. She used the old line. The one tied to the home she thought was hers now. She didn't expect me to answer. I didn't. Her voicemail was short, shaky. She asked if we could talk through this like adults. Said she was surprised by how aggressive the court filing was. Claimed she didn't mean for it to go this far. That's the thing about people like her. They don't feel the fall until the floor disappears. Up until now, she still believed she had control. She thought I'd be bitter, maybe even broken, but manageable, predictable. She hadn't calculated for silence. Because silence doesn't argue. It doesn't justify. It executes. I played the voicemail once, then forwarded it to my attorney. No response. No commentary. The next morning, my lawyer called me with an update. Gregory had retained separate counsel. That meant distance. That meant fear. He was no longer protecting her. He was protecting himself. The man who had helped her steal, lie, and erase me had officially decided she wasn't worth sinking with. And just like that, the alliance cracked. That afternoon, I received notice that Melissa had filed a motion to request mediation. It was a last-ditch move, an attempt to settle outside the courtroom before the real damage began. But we were past mediation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. My attorney filed a counter-motion to block mediation, citing ongoing evidence collection and potential discovery of concealed assets. Then I submitted a formal request for a psychological review, focused solely on parental stability. Quiet, unemotional, professional. It wasn't designed to humiliate. It was designed to measure. Because a woman who orchestrates a financial ambush on a deployed spouse might not be the one best equipped to raise a child in stability. That same day, Melissa's lawyer contacted mine privately. They wanted a list of demands. I gave them 4. Full custody, return of all liquidated funds, sale of the house, and equal split after audit. Public withdrawal of all false claims made to friends and family. No negotiation. No apologies. just structure. Melissa didn't respond directly. But that night, she finally removed our wedding photos from her social media. Every trace of me, gone. Too late. She thought she could delete the evidence. She didn't realize I'd archived everything before she even filed. I wasn't erasing a memory. I was building a record. The kind that doesn't just win cases, it rewrites the narrative. Her silence had once felt like power. Now it felt like retreat. And the war she started from behind a screen, it was coming to her doorstep, documented, measured, and weaponized in ways she never saw coming. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Melissa arrived 10 minutes late. She wore a navy blazer, minimal makeup, and that look people wear when they've just realized the rules of the game have changed and they're no longer holding the dice. Gregory wasn't with her. His attorney had filed a separate affidavit the day before, formally stating that any involvement in her financial decisions was unadvised and personal in nature. Translation: he was throwing her under the bus before she could pull him in. I didn't say a word. Not in the hallway. Not in the courtroom. My lawyer handled everything. She laid out a timeline of financial withdrawals, asset mismanagement, and concealed funds during active military deployment. Dates, receipts, voicemails, bank logs, metadata, clean, surgical. Melissa didn't deny it. She couldn't. Her attorney tried to shift the narrative, claimed emotional distress, said she felt abandoned during my third tour, that she was isolated and felt financially insecure. But the judge didn't blink. He simply asked one question. Did you notify your spouse of your intent to remove funds while he was actively deployed? She didn't answer, because silence, when cornered, becomes suffocating. That afternoon, the court issued a temporary asset freeze on all personal and joint accounts under Melissa's name. A forensic audit was ordered. Custody hearing was fast-tracked. And the judge made a statement I'll never forget. This doesn't appear to be a case of misunderstanding. This appears to be strategic deception. Melissa's posture collapsed. Shoulders sunk. Eyes dropped. She hadn't expected this. She thought the military couldn't touch her. That I'd be too far, too late, too distracted. But I'd never stopped moving. I wasn't reacting. I was executing. Outside the courtroom, she tried to speak to me for the first time in months. Said my name once. Just once. I walked past her without a word. She had spoken through transactions and silence. I replied through systems and law. That weekend, the house went on the market. Per court order. No chance to delay it. No room for appeal. The funds from the sale? Held in escrow, pending full review of fraud and misappropriation. She would see none of it until the investigation was over. If ever. Gregory quit the firm the following Monday. Moved out of state. According to a background trace I'd commissioned before the hearing. The kind that doesn't show up on Google. The kind you learn to run when your life depends on not being surprised. Melissa was alone now. Truly alone. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I'd chosen closure through clarity, not chaos. This wasn't a war. It was a conclusion. Structured. Silent. Complete. And still, I hadn't raised my voice once. A week after the hearing, Melissa emailed me directly. The subject line was empty. The message was 3 sentences. She said she was processing everything, that she never expected things to unravel like this, and that she hoped we could eventually talk, just the two of us. I didn't respond, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because she no longer had the right to hear it. When someone detonates your life from a distance, they don't get closure. They get consequence. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just removing myself completely, the way a surgeon removes a tumor. Precisely. Without fanfare. Without conversation. She kept reaching out in small ways. A call to the lawyer. A forwarded document she claimed she forgot to submit. A message to my mother, asking if I was okay. That one sealed it. She hadn't asked if I was okay when she emptied our daughter's trust. She hadn't asked if I was okay when she drained my savings. She hadn't asked if I was okay when she left a single text and disappeared. But now, she wanted reassurance. I archived every message without opening them. Because this was never about a relationship. It was about removal. She had removed me first, emotionally, financially, logistically. I was just finishing what she started, quietly, legally, completely. My lawyer sent final instructions to the court-appointed auditor. We included a full chain of evidence. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. The facts were enough. Meanwhile, I prepared my last move. A change of residency. I relocated to a neighboring state with full military benefit coverage, filed new schooling paperwork for our daughter, and updated my emergency contact list. Melissa wasn't on it. Not anymore. I didn't announce it. No email. No social post. No new address forwarded. I became a ghost, not out of pettiness, but out of principle. Because peace doesn't come when the storm calms. Peace comes when you decide who still gets access to your silence. That night, I stood outside the storage facility where I'd kept what little she hadn't touched, some service gear, my brother's old bike helmet, a few photos I'd pulled from the house before deployment. I didn't feel nostalgic. I felt free. For the first time in almost a decade, no one was waiting to ambush me from the shadows of something they called love. The bank accounts were secure. The legal case was almost complete. The story had turned in my favor. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. And that's a different kind of power. Because real victory doesn't shout. It walks away. 6 months passed. No calls. No messages. No sudden legal surprises. Just silence. The same silence she once used against me. Only now, it belonged to me. The house sold. The funds cleared. Half was returned to my account under court order. The audit uncovered 2 additional accounts Melissa had opened in her sister's name. That detail didn't help her case, especially not in the custody hearing. The judge ruled in my favor. Full parental rights. No shared custody. Supervised visitation, twice a month, if she applied through the proper channels. She didn't. Not once. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. Some people disappear out of guilt. Others out of fear. Melissa? She disappeared because the mirror finally stopped lying. I moved into a small home on the edge of a quiet town. It's nothing special, just walls, a roof, and peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need defending. My daughter adjusted faster than I expected. Kids are built to survive storms. As long as one person stays steady, they anchor themselves. I made sure she had that. Sometimes, at night, I'd catch her staring at the front door, waiting for something. Maybe a knock. Maybe a voice. Maybe the kind of closure we never got from Melissa. But there are some stories you don't finish with words. Some you close by refusing to reopen them. The military taught me a lot. Precision, patience, control. But what deployment never prepares you for is coming home to a battlefield you didn't start. I didn't fight Melissa with rage. I didn't argue my worth. I didn't plead for understanding. I just moved. Quietly. Deliberately. Like I was trained to. In the end, she took the first shot. But I was the one who walked away intact. Some people call that revenge. I call it recovery. Because revenge is loud, messy, emotional, chaotic. Recovery is clean, cold, unflinching. And it leaves no room for negotiation. I heard Melissa moved again. Out of the city. Maybe out of the state. No one's sure. I don't track her. I don't need to. The war is over. The dust has settled. And what remains is exactly what I was aiming for. Not justice. Not retribution. Just peace on my own terms. There's an old saying we used in the field. The loudest man in the room is the one most afraid of silence. I used to think that meant leadership had to be quiet. Now I know it means healing has to be. She emptied the accounts. She filed the papers. She thought she ended the story. But she forgot something. Some men don't break. Some men don't beg. Some men build systems that speak for them. And when the dust settles, they walk out of the fire quieter than they went in. And far more dangerous. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.